Okay, guys, welcome to a WrestleSlam podcast special in association with Sports Madness TV. I'm joined by one of the greats, a man that we absolutely adore here in Ireland, Sami Callihan. Sami, how's things, my friend? How's things on your side of the world at this moment in time?
See, this guy gets it. Great introduction. I'm sitting over here wearing my awesome Dusty Rhodes Bloody shirt, having a great day, doing some media for Impact Wrestling. And you know what? What do you got for me? I'm ready to hit things into high gear.
No, we're going to go balls deep first, Sami. We're going to talk Ireland. I know you've got a great love for Ireland. You've been here, first of all, with OTT many years ago. And I just want to talk about that, first of all, right? I want to pitch an idea to you because you respect wrestling. You know, America produces great wrestlers. The Canadians do. The Irish do. So I want to pitch an idea, right? Impact Wrestling versus the best Ireland has to offer, right? We're looking for that European tour to come back. It's not been a European tour with Impact for many years. We're hoping one day it does happen. What does that sound like to you? Impact versus Ireland in Dublin, Ireland. What do you think of that, first of all?
I think that's great. I'm 100% for that idea. And it's one of those things. I love wrestling in Ireland. One of my favorite places to wrestle in my career is Ireland. People are crazy over there. People scream at you. They sing at you. You might get drunk at the bar and get into a wrestling match with a dude. That actually happened. Not even playing. Myself and Jake Chris at the hotel bar after a OTT event. We actually got to a scuffle with a couple guys. It was a fun scuffle. They challenged us to a wrestling match and we wrestled right there on the bar floor. It's the exact kind of life I like to live. The exact type of thing I hope would happen in Ireland. That's something right off the bucket list.
And look, we were lucky enough to see you at OTT. I was blessed to be at that show, and it was just, you know what I mean. There was a massive aura that night. It was incredible to meet you in person. But obviously you hear a lot about OTT. You'd be observant. What was it like to wrestle for OTT in general, and work with a great roster that night?
It's absolutely great. I love wrestling overseas, especially in that region, the Irelands, the Scotlands, the Englands, the Wales area. Like there's something about the fans. Like if people ask me like, oh, where are the best fans in the world? I'm almost always going to say that region because it's something like it's more than just being in a professional wrestling event. It's like almost as crazy as being at a football event. It's its own type of magic that you're not going to get anywhere else in the world. The closest thing to that might have been like Germany when I was going over to Germany all the time. But like that fan base is one of my absolute favorites. They're always drinking. They're always loud. They're always rowdy. And that's the exact type of environment I want to be a professional wrestler in.
And look, Sami, there's no doubt that independent scene put you in good stead. Look, Impact is a household name in the world of wrestling. Look, we see the deal with DAZN, the Insiders, the Plus. But look, obviously that indie scene, you mentioned Germany, the UK, Ireland, it's all fundamental for a wrestler that wants to learn stuff. It's a tough, gritty road. You learn so much, it's tough being on the road. But how much do you enjoy that indie scene, and how big is it influential on a star like yourself?
It's huge. Like I was a big proponent. Like I think every professional wrestler on the planet should have to do a stint on the independents because you learn so much that you're not going to learn just being on television. It's great once you get on television, though. It's one of those things that's everyone's dream for the most part. You want to get on television. You want to make that money. You want to be a household name. You want to have action figures. You want to be in video games. And like, I think being on the independents, like I did in traveling that route and traveling around the world and paying my dues and busting my ass and being able to train in every different country under the sun. When I finally did get to television and I finally did get that notoriety that I wanted, it meant that much more to me because I earned it. I worked for it. I busted my ass for it. And getting that like is amazing. That's like the great thing about professional wrestling. And people always go, I never understood until a couple years ago when they were like, the journey is way better than the destination. And I am a big proponent of that. The journey of being broke, being poor, not knowing where you're going to stay at night, just crazy adventures all over the world was like some of the best times of my life. Like I love what I'm doing now, but there will always be a very deep part in my heart that will always appreciate that time.
And Sami, we share something. We share the same age. But you're like a man, right? That's lived two lives. You've accomplished so much, and yet such a young man. You know what I mean? We always see you blow up on Twitter, on the internet. You know what I mean? You're a guy that gives it 110% when it comes to every performance, every promo, every attribute when it becomes to be a professional wrestler. You know what I mean? Where does that come from? Tell us about the early days. You know,
I love
growing up.
professional wrestling, man. That one's a simple one. Like that's something like as a kid, everyone always like, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? In like first grade, second grade, when you're like 5, 6, 7 years old, everyone's like, oh, I want to be a policeman or a police officer. Oh, I want to be a fire marshal. I want to be in the military. I want to be an actor. It was always professional wrestling for me. There was never any backup. There was never any other thing that I wanted to be. Possibly the only other thing I remember in a kid, like I remember my parents showing me this when I signed one of my first major wrestling contracts. They showed me this report that I'd written in first grade. So I was like, I want to say like 5 or 6 years old at the time. And it was like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it was either professional wrestler or Ghostbuster. I figured out Ghostbusters ain't gonna happen, so I went the professional wrestling route, but it was always professional wrestling. Even everything I did as a young kid was to one day become a professional wrestler. I got into acting and drama because I was like, oh, that's gonna help with the promos. I got into show choir because I'm like, oh, that will help you just be in front of people and do ridiculous things. I got into sports. I was an amateur wrestler. I played football. I did track. Like I was always a very active kid because everything I did wasn't because I was like, you know what, I really love football. No, it was because I thought it was going to help me one day become a better professional wrestler. And I'm not going to lie, I did pretty damn good for myself.
You did. And look, Sami, household name and Impact. When someone mentions Impact, Sami Callihan's always a name that's you know what I mean, always at the top. It's been an incredible journey for you to date via Impact Wrestling. Why do you love Impact so much? You know, you bring so much to them, and look, they're lucky to have you.
Look, Impact Wrestling, like this may seem very cliche, but Impact Wrestling is a family. I wish we had a camera backstage in our locker room because it's like one of the most magical locker rooms I've ever been a part of in my career. There's no backstabbing. There's no drama. It's everyone working hard in something they believe in, and that's Impact Wrestling. Look, everyone else might have had their dreams when they're younger, like, oh, I want to go here. I want to go here. Like in high school, when I first started training to be a professional wrestler and I first started watching TNA, I remember watching the very first TNA pay-per-view and I instantly fell in love. Me and my friends watched it every Wednesday on the Wednesday night pay-per-view. Then they got a TV deal. Then they started having major pay-per-views. I was like, you know what? This is where I want to wrestle when I grow up. Like, this is like my ultimate dream. And then finally getting the chance to be part of this new building of Impact Wrestling with this new regime over the past 5 years is like, that's something. Sure, it's cool to be a world champion, but being a part that I believe like I'm one of the things that have truly helped this product and helped this company. Like I bleed this company, and being part of that's bigger on my resume than being a world champion could ever be.
And look, we mentioned the deals at the moment, you know, a massive deal with DAZN, Insiders Plus. Impact's on the up. You know, the real wrestling fan will watch it. They want to watch it. They're glued to it. It's number one on their charts. It's guys like yourself and all the guys in the locker room, you know, putting the hard work. But how big is that deal with DAZN? How big is, you know, the Insiders, the Plus, given the fact the fans can go back, watch all the great moments over the years and see you even being crowned a former Impact Heavyweight Champion?
It's absolutely huge. It's one of those things, like, I don't think people inside the United States really like grasp how big Impact Wrestling is over the entire world. Like, we are not just a national company. We are a international company. We have a huge market in India, a huge market in Great Britain, in Ireland, and Scotland, a huge market all over the world. And like now getting a chance that people are finally taking notice of that with the new regime. Like, sure, we understand there was a bad stink in a lot of people's mouth at the end of the old era. Like, Impact Wrestling was almost in the grave. That's why we have a show called Hard to Kill, because Impact Wrestling, that is the easiest way to describe what Impact Wrestling is. We are hard to kill. And we fought back. And over the last 5 years with this new regime, with this roster, believing in the product, I feel like for the most part have wiped that taste out of people's mouth and show that Impact Wrestling is one of the greatest wrestling companies on the planet today, especially on a weekly episodic like level. Like, we are one of the most consistent wrestling shows on the planet. And if you want to talk about pay-per-views, every pay-per-view we do, we knock it out of the park. And coming back from COVID, like I saw this statistic the other day, like just in the past, like this year, in the past like 5 or 6 months, we have sold out almost every special we've done. We've sold out almost every pay-per-view we've done, and we are on the up. And I think one of those things is like, we understand that professional wrestling, like being everything on television isn't how the world works anymore. Anthem is a digital multimedia company. Like, you can watch us on YouTube for $1.99 a month. You can watch every special and every show live as it airs. We have Impact Plus, where you can watch all the old shows, all the old pay-per-views, as well as the new stuff. We have so much content that we're putting out right now. It's more than just professional wrestling. You actually get to know our roster. You get to know our wrestlers. Heck, Josh Alexander has Retro Recap on Impact Ultimate Insiders. Joe Hendry has Food Fight. Taylor Wilde has her podcast show. I have Callihan Uncensored. Like, we are going to continuously put out content because I feel like that's what makes people connect with our wrestlers more than anyone.
I love it, Sammy. And listen, I'm glad you mentioned Lockeroom, right? What kind of people, look, I know everyone will impress you, but what kind of people really have impressed you these last number of months via Lockeroom and in
Steve
ring?
Maclin, like, he's a world champion right now. Steve Maclin's a guy that, like myself, may not have had a great shake at other companies, and I don't think people understood what he got. Heck, when he first got to Impact, I don't even think the fans understood what this man could become. And I think over the past year, along with Josh Alexander, he has been one of the most consistent wrestlers, not just in Impact, in wrestling in general. Dude's an absolute badass. He's an animal. He's a machine. He's the type of professional wrestler as a kid that I would absolutely love. Heck, as an adult, Steve Maclin, we may not see eye to eye on everything. We may enjoy fighting each other, but Steve Maclin is a guy, like, having him as the face of our company and finally seeing people give him the respect he deserves is something I love to see, because I am all on the Steve Maclin bandwagon.
I love it. Look, you recently had a match with Masha Slamovic, you know, a woman that we've had on a couple of weeks back. What's your thought on Masha? Look, she's an incredible lady with a big future.
I love Masha. She's a crazy human being, but she is the closest thing. People always ask, like, now that I'm getting a little older, I've been in the business a little while, like, oh, who's like the closest thing to you as a young wrestler? And like, male or female, it's Masha. Masha is the closest thing to young Sami Callihan out there. And like, she's crazy and stubborn, just like I am. Like, she's someone, like, I think, what is she, like 23 at this point? She's already been in Japan. She's already on television with Impact Wrestling. I think someone in the next couple years, like, even so now, she is going to be one of the biggest professional wrestlers on the planet, because she eats, breathes, and sleeps professional wrestler. And she's a crazy person. I don't think she would allow herself to fail.
I love it. Now, Impact recently announced Down Under, the Australian tour, which is epic news. Sami Callihan in Australia, you know what I mean? The roster in Australia. It just shows how far up you're going. And look, Impact is huge. We know it's huge, but you want it all around the world, you know, and it's only the start of big things. And look, that European tour is destined to happen, I suppose, either this year or next year. But look, Australia is going to be a good one, Sammy.
It's huge. Like, it's showing that now that COVID, COVID put like a damper on a lot of plans, I feel, for a lot of different wrestling companies. It put everyone back in the Stone Age, having like studio wrestling shows again. But now, since coming out of that, we're traveling more. We're starting to do bigger and better arenas, do bigger, better buildings. And now it's just showing like, yo, Impact Wrestling is about to start traveling the world again. And I think like we're going to just continuously shock people and prove why Impact Wrestling is one of the best wrestling shows on the planet. In Australia, I feel, is just the tip of the iceberg.
Agreement, man. Now, we've got a couple of fan questions, Sammy. Look, we always have to ask them. The 5 Max Pro Wrestling podcast, they said, Sammy, has there ever been an idea pitched to you where you had to shut it down straight away because it was too crazy? Is something too crazy for Sami Callihan, I wonder?
No, I'll make anything work. I really pride myself on being one of the most versatile wrestlers on the planet. Like, you could put me in the stupidest outfit ever, and Sami Callihan would somehow make it work. Like, that's one thing. I love that challenge. I love taking something that may not work. I love taking something that there's the uncertainty and trying to make it work and figuring out that true mathematical equation that's gonna make it work. And I think that's one of the things, like, people can say a lot of things about Sami Callihan, but they can't say that Sami Callihan can't make shit work.
That's true. We had an emotional tweet. So a girl, she's a big fan, Stacey Johnston, right? She said, Sammy, when it's all said and done and you have numerous more Impact heavyweight titles to that list and you decide to call it a day, what would be the goal, you know, when you retire? Are you going to set up, you know what I mean, numerous schools, academies? Are you going to...
I already have a school in Ohio, Pile Driver Wrestling Academy. We have a great group of young wrestlers there right now, but it's one of those things, I feel like, even since I was younger, like, you got to think, I started promoting shows when I was 17 years old in my hometown. I have taught myself almost every job in professional wrestling, from wrestling to managing to reffing to being a promoter to being a matchmaker to being commentary to editing, digital multimedia, like advertising, marketing. I've taught myself almost every job in professional wrestling. I've done almost every job in professional wrestling. I am always going to be working in professional wrestling because I love professional wrestling. And that's why I've done everything in my life leading to this moment. So I can always be part of the wild, crazy world that is professional wrestling.
I love it. Now, 2 more questions. JD, he's a massive fan. He goes, Sami, does Steve Maclin have to watch his back? Because look, we know that title's destined to be around Joe West again, but how long do you reckon it will be till we'll see you contend for that world title again? Because
look, I'm dealing with those idiots, the DAZN right now. Like, I think I've proven that over the past 4 months. I tricked them into letting me join their group just so I could bash Jeter in the head of a baseball bat. I have no problem playing the long game. And whether it's I go after Maclin now or go after Maclin later, Macklin's the type of guy who's going to be ready with it. He's always looking over his shoulder. He loves that target on the back. And that what makes me respect him so much. Like, he ain't afraid of a fight. He ain't afraid if you hit him from behind. He ain't afraid if you hit him from the face. A guy a lot like myself. Like, so anytime Steve Maclin might be ready for the death machine, he's always going to be ready for the death machine, as I would always be ready for a guy like Steve Maclin. But my number one thing right now is just continuously beating the crap out of the DAZN with Alan Angels, Khan, and Diener. Like, that's the number one right now. And I'm having a lot of fun trying to ruin those idiots' lives.
And look, Under Siege is where we're going to see some beautiful, beautiful beating. You know, you're going to inflict a lot of pain, aren't you?
100%. And it was announced online, like, it's myself and 2 opponents of my and 2 partners of my choosing. And I will tell you this: I put in some phone calls. I see the tweets online. I see people hit me up nonstop. And I will say this: I am bringing someone in that I'm very close to and someone from my past, and everyone will be pleasantly surprised at what I have to plan for the DAZN at Under Siege.
I love it. The last one, all these guys that tweeted said Sami Callihan in ECW would have been feckin' epic if you were in ECW in the 90s. But look, last question, we'll make it fast. Bully Ray, what's your thoughts on Bully Ray and ECW?
Look, he's a legend. Like, he's one of like the forefathers of that entire style of professional wrestling. Opinionated, yes. Very stubborn, yes. But a guy that I think is good for the professional wrestling business. Whether you love him, whether you hate him, a guy like Bubba Ray has a wealth of knowledge, and he's always going to make people talk.
I love it. Sami, it's a pleasure as always. Look, we're hoping to see you back in Ireland. We love Impact versus the best Ireland has to offer in the near future. We hope, you know, Impact can make that happen with you being ahead of that. We'll catch you soon, my man. I'm looking forward to catching you in Ireland in the near future. A drinks on me, bro, and we'll see you soon.
I'm going to hold you to that.
Do, please.
I'm going to hold you to that.
Do, please. Thank you.
Thanks, Jared.
Thank you, Lauren. Sami's the man. Sami's the man.
Awesome.
Always an absolute pro. As always.
Anytime, man.
Oh, stop it. I've already filled his head with how good he is. Don't you start as well. Thanks a lot, mate. It's good to see you.
Likewise. We'll see you soon, guys. Thanks a million.
Take care.
Be good.
Bye.
Bye.